Okay, thank you for joining me today. And yeah, thank you, Alan, for joining me today. And then today I'm going to share with you three news about XR. The first one is Absence 600 pound dollar, 600 pound augmented reality smart glasses are a glimpse into the future. Yeah, so this news is on independent.co.uk. So if you are interested in knowing more about what Epson's new smart glass, feel free to look up your browser. And then, yeah, so with Facebook, Google, and Apple smart glasses on horizon, Epson's mover Move Real. I don't know how to spell that. Move Real BT40s feel like a canvas waiting for print, for paint. Okay, so this this news was written by Adam Smith. Okay, so we all know that smart glasses has been a while, and Google, after a failed attempt to make Google Glass popular, they right, they purchased a startup to make a second attempt. And now Facebook has been continually developing smart glasses to build a mixed reality future. Apple has been long rumored to be doing the same thing because Tim Cook, I remember it was around 2017. Tim Cook said that the whole industry will be changed entirely and nothing will be left untouched if augmented reality, rocks or something. And Tim Cook pretty much saying that augmented reality is a very, very important technology to the future. So yeah, so pretty much that is kind of the background. And now currently, Absence Movable BT40. It's a 600-pound pair of second screen smart glasses. Now, it's join the party, join the manufacturing or creating smart glasses. So these glasses need to plug into Windows computer or an Android smartphone via USB-C connection. And then, yeah, so it's like, yeah, so it's kind of like 1080p display, and yeah, and everything looks pretty good. I would say that it should be like a normal standard for smartphone, and you need to plug into your Windows or your Windows computer or Android smartphone. Yeah, and it's comfortable, lightweighted. Yeah, and you can glance between your computer, and it's like a second monitors for your smart glass. Yeah, so for I think it's very interesting to see all the companies they are competing each other and trying to provide a good, I would say, very good quality of wares. And if there are more companies doing the smartphone, smart glasses, then we will get better service or better product and with a lower price. So, what do you have any feedback, Ellen, for the news?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I love the innovation, and I love the competition because that definitely results in better products out there. At some point, some of these maybe smaller companies will get picked up by the bigger ones, or at least we'll start seeing some new innovation kind of happening around the wearables or the smart glasses. But yeah, I mean, I believe I still think the only issue with some of these devices is being somewhat proprietary to a specific kind of connection. So only being able to work with Android, only being able to work with Windows. And then again, when Apple comes out, it'll only work with Apple, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, you start to limit the demographic of people that have certain types of devices. So what would be awesome if there was some type of wearable device where it's just plugged in, kind of like kind of like we have now with headphones and stuff. You can just plug it into any device. Would be cool. I doubt that works. Everybody kind of wants to have their own, hardware working on their own devices. But yeah, I mean, I think the reason why Apple would be super successful here is because there's just so many people that use Apple devices, and it's just one of those things where you have to have the ecosystem around it to be useful. And I think that's one of the the issues that comes up with these things as well. But I do love the competition. I think that's vital for having innovation kind of coming out rapidly. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you see, like I feel like the more competitors in this area, the more fragile, or like just like you said, that the more brand or the more incompatible that we have to adjust. For example, like, oh, this glass only work for Android phone. So for me, I have iPhone and MacBook Pro, then I might not be able to use it or develop it. But I don't know, like maybe in the future, there's something, for example, like right now, if you develop an app, right, you need to develop, usually people will develop two, right? One is iOS, another one is Android. So maybe the device, it is still, because of the companies, they are compete with each other. So maybe we can have, like, for example, iOS device, but all the apps, they are compatible. For example, I buy this whole set. I don't have to buy another device in order to play another game or use another software. Maybe software part, they probably need to diverse. So make sure all the device that we buy is not just like, oh, I buy like a few thousand for this device and I only can play 10 apps. And I have to buy another set in order to do, I don't know, online education or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it's not this simple hardware-wise, but it would be awesome if there was like a wearable device that was like Bluetooth enabled, where you could just connect through Bluetooth and interact with whichever device you had. I mean, I think it would be a more interesting kind of world to have something like that. But obviously the technology is a little more advanced than just simple Bluetooth connections. But yeah, I agree completely. Some of my frustrations when I look at different software, different kind of features out there, it's like, well, this only works for Windows. This only works for the Quest. Only works for Rift. And then you're kind of like, well, I have to wait for it to come out for my device.
Yeah, and Quest Rift. Oh no, Oculus Rift and Oculus Quest. Like they are from the same companies. Why I couldn't play the Rift game, right? Or something, right? And I have to have a PC. So there are so many stuff that makes everything so hard. I don't know why. It's just.
But it's again, the problem we have right now is because this technology is so new, relatively new, that you're going to have those segmentations. It just makes sense. I think as the industry kind of becomes more standardized, you'll see a lot of this stuff kind of come together better. But yeah, right now it's like they say, we're in the Wild West of some of this stuff. So I think it's definitely going to be segmented for a while.
Yeah, I think so. Cool, thank you. And the next news will be, it's on Forbes.com. And then the title is called Empowering Equity in Education with Virtual Reality and Immersive Learning. So this news is written by SAP. Yeah, okay. So, so by Stephanie Nashawati. So yeah, so pretty much in this news, it talks about the e-learning, and and they took some, I would say, experiment and some research about how students learn from the e-learning and versus to virtual reality platform, and they find out the 4 to 6 weeks course feature curriculum from Telespin. They find out that the learner is more concentrate, or let me see, it's pwc.com, they find out VR learners are more focused compared to, the classroom setup. For example, like they ask a bunch of questions for the tester, for the student. How many times were you multitasking or distracted during this experience? In classroom setup, it's like 0.78. But in VR, it's only kind of like halfway. It's just like 0.48. So you see, like in classroom setup, people feel kind of like easy to get distracted. And e-learning is, much higher, right? Because it's a small screen. And sometimes we have something to do, so we will leave, right? So VR, in this case, with VR learning, users are significantly less distracted. In a VR headset, simulations and immersive experience, it will, make users or learners more focused on the learning. And so research has shown that immersive technology is a powerful education tool. According to PwC, people who are taught using virtual reality tech are 3.75 times more emotionally connected to the content, 4 times more focused on their e-learning peers, and 275% more confident about applying the skills they learn after training. And what's the benefit? The benefit about VR learning is that like students can not only learn from the lesson, but also in a real world setting. It's in a simulation, right? So students can learn a lot by all this, real world settings, and also the knowledge. So they learn much more than e-learning student and students in the classroom. So yeah, and also in this article, it mentioned some soft skills, right? Because sometimes it's really hard to train the soft skills, and something that is a topics. For example, like before we mentioned about like in Yale University, professors or researchers was doing some experiment about e-cigarette or vape, right? Those stuff, and helping high schools to reduce their potential to have e-cigarette in the future. So it seems like it significantly changed the behavior of high school students after a few weeks of testing. And then also this can gain the soft skills, for example, like empathy for the students. Like before we mentioned that for some universities, I forgot the name of the university, but they did some, accessibilities of the campus, right? One is a girl with a wheelchair, another one is a teacher, another one is a student, and a bunch of different avatars. And you can really be inside their shoes and empathize them. For example, the wheelchair girl, you probably cannot access from anywhere, right? Into the in the to the classroom. So yeah, so people will empathize more in those virtual settings. So yeah, so Ellen, any thoughts about the news for VR versus the other types of learning? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's very interesting, I guess, study on this subject, because I mentioned before, I believe the VR kind of access to training makes a lot of sense, because it kind of puts you into that environment. Psychologically, you're kind of truly connected to what you're doing. But it is interesting to compare that to a real live kind of classroom and the difference. I think, yeah, in a live classroom with multiple people in the classroom, you do have the probably the ability to get more distracted, by things. Whereas in the VR, you're kind of in your own specific little world, interacting with that one thing. So I do think that would make it more likely not to get distracted. I guess my question is, because VR, even to the younger generation, is still pretty new and pretty fascinating. My question would be, over time, like in a couple of years, when this becomes very standard thing that we do, is that same study the same? You know what I mean? It's like, if we're doing this in 5 or so years, where everybody does VR and it's just a common thing. Does the magic kind of go away, and it just kind of becomes more normal, and you can get distracted easier? You know what I mean? It's like, those stats might be perfect today because of the newness of the technology, but I don't know over time if that would change at all. But yeah, I do think because in a virtual environment, you're not necessarily, you could be interacting with other people, but for the most part, you're kind of focused on the task in front of you. So yeah, no, it's very interesting study.
Yeah, so yeah, I totally agree. And I think that maybe in the future, everything will change, right? And then all the data will change. And I think, yeah, as for the multitasking stuff, or, like we will get distracted by the environment. Should we really learn like a robot, right? It's like, you probably lose a lot of fun interacting with a real human being if you only live in the virtual world of your own. And VR pretty much is like a first person, right? It's a kind of like everything surrounded with you, and everything, it's like a game. Like, you are probably the only, or like maybe multiplayer game, but it feels like you are probably it's not a real life setting. So maybe if you spend too much time in VR, you might act, or you might feel it's hard to live in the real world.
Yeah, interact with people.
Yeah, real
that's
people.
a good question. I don't know if the study addressed that, but like, say for example, you went to a classroom
Yeah.
and you had 10 other people in that class learning the same subject at the same time, as opposed to a VR environment where it's just you learning that task by yourself. It would be interesting if you, in the VR world, or had other avatars around you that you could potentially interact with, or I don't know if the studies were kind of the same in that consideration, or if it was kind of differentiated there. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, like what if, for example, and they are still young, right? And I remember I play Oculus, and when I connect to the headset, it seems like they are limited kids. Like I forgot the age, like 13 or something. I don't know what age.
With Facebook, 13's the youngest.
Yeah,
they
they don't want kids like those ages. Like, but I think they are testing on 16 to 24. But I mean, if this VR, wants to be implemented into more younger generation, like kids, like, kindergarten, or, elementary school, they might confuse about the virtual and reality, right? Because they start doing it so young. So they probably think, oh, I thought everyone looks like a robot. And when I take off the glass, I find out people look different from what I saw.
act different,
Yeah, it's like
you do act different in VR, even those social aspects. It's a little odd to interact with people there. But yeah, when it comes to VR, one of my other questions, because I have a son who's 11, and his eyes are smaller, obviously, so we have to adjust the lenses on the Quest. But if you were a lot younger, I don't know how much, because it only goes so far. How much the lenses actually adapt for a kid, say 5 or 6 years old or something. So I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, right. Now maybe we are from reality to virtual reality. What if in the future kids is from from virtual to real world? They probably need something to make them to familiarize or acting more normal like us in this world.
No, I think like we talked about before, though, the advantage of VR, though, because a lot of people say bad things about it because you're not getting out in the world, you're not doing things. But I think for kids, the beauty is that you can kind of, nowadays, like my son can jump into the VR, he can walk on Mars right now. I mean, yeah,
wow.
you can see dinosaurs the way they would be in reality if they existed today. And you can travel the world. Like, I have him doing like homework things where he actually goes and sees virtual locations around the world, and travel and whatnot, and historical kind of sites.
Wow, that's
So
cool.
those are things I didn't have when I was a kid. So I think it's awesome.
Right. Yeah, and I think it breaks the limitations of a kid, right? Because when we were young, I remember when I was in elementary school, there was a science, because there was a science test. I still remember when I was first grade. I still remember that subject. It's like the question. The question it was that Earth is the only planet that has lives. And I was like, no, there is something out there. But, according to the textbook, it says that Earth is the only planet that, has lives. Yeah. So, but, I read some news. I don't know whether that's true or not. That there are some signals that approve to be higher intellectual stuff, like coming from other galaxy to some they send us some really special signals that shows they have like high intelligence. So maybe this can really help kids or next generation to start thinking outside of box, right, and innovate more. Rather than right now we limited to our reality, but with virtual reality, you see, like every time when I'm in old space, I always see a bunch of like avatars, and it's really cool to see how people envision themselves to another types of avatars. So
I think people act a little different when they can't be seen. It's kind of like in traffic. People are maybe a little more aggressive than they'd normally be in real life because you're inside the car, you're hidden, and so people kind of act differently there as well. But the one thing to remember, and I think people forget about this, is that the technology you see today in the VR world or even AR is the technology that exists today. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to look that way. And 20 years from now, we'll still see avatars kind of bouncing around and looking kind of weird. I mean, the technology will always get better. It'll be more realistic. They'll start to be able to capture facial, gestures, and so it's tough for when I show people samples of VR. It's like, well, that looks really fake, or they'll critique it, but it's like that's just today.
Right.
It'll be in the future. So
Right now I'm learning CHI, computer human interaction, and I read a book. It's very interesting. Back in 1970s, and people are still like the people like the people I would say a few decades ago are predicting today, like in this year, or like in few years ago, they predict that the future is full of icons. Icons will be the main communication tools for us, and they were predicting back in 1970s. And now I would say that, wow, you see, like people were predicting and trying to figure it out, and during that time it's just like a bold thoughts. And then people who think of those, like, oh, in the future a lot of users will start using icons to communicate, icon like a metaphor to communicate. And I was like, today we think everything is normal, but in the past it's like, wow, you are the mover, you guys are the pioneer. But it's very interesting. Maybe we are like that, right? Maybe in the future, after 20 decades, right, and then the kids look at people who are working right now for XR, they will think like, oh, does everything seems normal to them, but in this time it's still like we are still talking about it, we are trying to figure out what's the future. And we are already be part of the textbook for the and record all of that.
Everything seems very futuristic today, or very modern, but won't be very much longer. That'll seem very old-fashioned. And I remember back in the 80s watching music videos, and I think I was watching the Dire Straits video, Money for Nothing, and they had the 3D in that video of the characters. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, wow, that's so realistic looking. It was just fascinating. and if you look at that video today, it's a joke. It's like a cartoon. It's very basic, very clunky compared to what they can do today. But it's a good example of during that time, that was like kind of cutting edge, 3D stuff. And over time, it's just gotten better and better and better. And that's exactly the point that that VR is going to do the same thing. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I think, I don't know, like we are working on it, and then hopefully like, like all our, kind of talking or all our effort will come true. And next generation, when they look back, and then they will figure out, wow, whatever they think there today is normal, but actually in this time is pioneer, right? Yeah, okay. So the third news is entrepreneur.com. And the title is called Get to Know Google's Starline project to make video calls with a life-size 3D holograms. So yeah, so this news was written by entrepreneur staff, right? Okay. So yeah, so in this news, it says that soon you could talk face to face with other people at a distance, thanks to the Starline project, the system that Google is developing to project 3D holograms in video call. So pretty much Google is doing something that it's really futuristic, right? And it's people always think about Star Wars or Back to the Future, yeah, some really cool movies. And Google is ready to work on the Starline project. It's a system for making video calls that project 3D holograms of people in real size. So Project Starline was unveiled this week during the Google I/O event, where the big tech presented its next news. Yeah, the pretty much it's like it combines research in company in computer vision, machine learning, and spatial audio and real-time compression with a breaking through 3D display. So pretty much you talk with your friends in 3D in video chat, right? And then Google's Project Starline can turn another person into totally a HoloLens, holograms. So yeah, so I think the camera with which includes a 3D recording system and depth sensors will collect information from a person's face, body, and movements. This will be processed and compressed by an intelligent system, which will send them to another computer via the internet in real time. Yeah, so the receiving device will decompress the data and convert it into a holographic projection, which will be displayed on the screen or frame. Thus, we will see our, you can see it is as a life-size 3D model speaking and gesturing as if we were face to face. So yeah, I think this one is a very interesting one. If you want to do a real-time hologram, right? You need a few hundred high-end, I would say at least a lot of cameras point at you, and you need to be in a studio, right, with a really high-end, um, device or settings, and you will sitting there and with 5G connection. So because the data is so big. But right now with Google Starline project, you can pretty much do it in real time and turn yourself a hologram. Maybe you can storage as a as a footage or something. I think this is like a really cool and not so expensive if you want to have a small hologram. It seems like if you want to have a hologram, real hologram, it takes at least around 10K to 15K just for I would say 5 or 10 minutes small hologram of yourself, right? So I think this is definitely a really, really, like helping us to achieve to another milestone. Yeah. What do you think, Ellen? Any feedback? Ellen, do you have any feedback or thoughts for the news for Google's Starline project? Make a video calls with a life-size 3D. Yeah.
Sorry, Dominique, I think I got kicked off. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. With that technology, it's very interesting to me because you're always looking at, I guess, what's the obvious way to do holograms, and we've looked at different types of, laser systems that can kind of use different light points from different directions and, and using mirrors to kind of bounce things off. But I think what they've figured out is that there's always a different way to approach a problem. And so by machine learning and some of the AI that's available today, you kind of bake the video into tracking you, and then being able to manipulate the object behind you in 3D. And I believe that's kind of what they're doing to get this kind of 3D, effect going on. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff, and definitely another glimpse into the future of how we'll kind of be able to connect with people remotely, but making it a much closer experience. Another technology that I thought was interesting is NVIDIA recently came out with a video conferencing technology where instead of sending video from like maybe a Zoom meeting, instead of sending video, what they do is they capture your image at the very beginning of the process, and then they use facial detection or AI to then take that image and then map your gestures to that image and then send the data through to the other person. So
is that special.io? Like at the beginning, you need to take a 2D photo or upload?
Similar to that, yeah, exactly. So they kind of do the same thing. They scan your face at the very beginning of the call, and then instead of using actual video as a process, they just use your facial data to then map it to the image, and then send that data over to the other side. But it reduces the data transfer significantly as far as what's required to make that connection. So yeah, I thought that was pretty fascinating in just how the technology is kind of evolving.
Yeah, before we think that, everything needs to go through the super expensive camera and send traditional signal to, to the computer so it can generate a precise, data. But now, with machine learning, you can fake it, right?
Exactly.
It becomes, yeah. So
it's getting so sophisticated that, it's harder to detect. Like in the beginning, you can definitely tell.
Yeah.
And even like with spatial I/O, I mean, it's very obvious. It's an avatar that's weirdly meshed to a body. But again, like I said, it's getting better and better, and eventually it'll, you might not be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, right. Yeah, imagine like at the beginning, the phone's camera probably is not working as good as a traditional one. But right now, you see, like I bought a traditional one, which was like super expensive, like 3K or 4K. But yeah, with my phone, yeah, I can pretty much shoot anywhere, anytime, and it's smaller, and I can even edit it on my phone. So I feel like traditional camera, it feels like unless you are a professional photographer, videographers, it seems like everyone right now is using phone as their camera. So yeah, so I think the easy way. There's always a amateur way, or the easy way to achieve, and there's always expensive way, right? Professional way. So I think this one, if the result is kind of similar, but less quality or something, I think as for budget wise, a lot of the majority of people, if it is attached to phone or in the future smart glass, I think this one might go viral than the traditional, way of producing holograms.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
It'll definitely morph. If anything, it'll morph into other technology that's utilized. And I think the beauty of these types of applications that sometimes they just become, the standard of what we do, and sometimes they just kind of transition into other technologies that then become standard. So none of it goes to waste. Even the Google Glass, that wasn't necessarily a success for a lot of reasons, but that the concept of it, that the technology's been able to kind of be morphed into stuff that we, will be using today and also will be using in the future. So, it's never a waste, to do this stuff. I think it all comes together eventually.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, there was a company called 8i, 8 numbers, I as ice cream, 8i, and it was doing a lot of hologram capture. They have a super high end studios, and they are capturing the real person and making it a small footages. And a lot of people, like I remember back in 2016 17, and people didn't really know how to use these technologies because it's too out there, and people start thinking about who needs a holographic footage, right? But right now you see all the AR stuff. Yeah, so technologies, like I think it's a lot of programmers, or like the companies, they are pushing the technology. Once they have the product, people didn't really know how to use it, but when the time goes by, there's always something maybe twist a little bit, and then now they are doing the storytelling stuff. So if you look at ai.com, I think that is a very interesting stuff. Like before, they were trying to figure out how to use the technology, but right now it's perfect for a lot of live concert or celebrities. You can pretty much film them in a professional way for hologram, and then put it in the AR app. So
actually, I visited a company recently that does hologram, does scans of people in 3D as well. But it was interesting because one of their applications that they developed was the ability to use it for security. So the same way you would do facial recognition for security, they're doing scanning of the entire body to also be able to track people and get a better reference of people in a 3D environment.
Wow,
so
that's
that was kind of scary and interesting at the same time.
Yeah, right. I mean, like scanning the whole body. I find out that right now all our data is pretty much being taken by a lot of big companies. So nobody has a real privacy. Yeah, so we are part of the big plane.
Exactly. Yeah, it can't run away from it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Ellen, for joining me today. And hopefully see you tomorrow. And thank you everyone for joining me today. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.